Meet Daniela. She sits alone in the conference room, reading the employee survey results, feeling intense disappointment. The message is clear. Lack of direction, low morale, toxic culture. Daniela's chest tightens. She's the director of HR and risk management for the city of Orlando. And she spent her entire career developing people, coaching leaders, improving workplace culture. But lately, nothing seems to stick. Turnover is increasing. Engagement is plummeting. And the survey results revealed her biggest fear. People are checking out. And Daniela's done everything she could. Everything that she's known has worked in the past. Coaching leaders one-on-one, having informal trainings, having employee huddles. But how do you scale culture change with such limited resources? How do you motivate leaders when they themselves are just as drained as their employees? Daniela wants to believe that she can fix it. She wants to believe all of her effort isn't for nothing. But lately, the work's been coming home with her. She's been short with her husband, disconnected from her friends, and starting to feel as though she's not going to be able to solve this. Feeling a bit disheartened and discouraged by it all. She wants her people to be excited to show up at work every day. She wants her leaders to lead with purpose, not pressure. But she's starting to lose hope. Today, I'm joined by Sherene McHenry. Sherene is a former professor who has a PhD in counselor education, who is now a full-time speaker. She's taken the stage on 5 different continents. She's a celebrated author, has been featured in Entrepreneur and Forbes, and she works with leaders on how to boost morale, re-engage their team, and elevate their leadership from the inside out. And I'm excited to hear what Sherene would offer to someone like Daniela, someone whose heart is fully in it, but can't seem to find the right levers to create the change she knows is needed. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. So Sherene, like you and I were talking about before we started recording, I love your name because it is my sister's name, and she's one of my favorite people in the world. Now, one thing that's interesting about what I learned about you is there's some similarities with my sister. Here's what I found. You said in one of your on your website, it says, as a kid who offered marital advice before I could drive, I learned early on to pay attention to what makes people tick. And my sister was someone like that too, where she was always teaching, always giving advice. And it got me curious to learn about you from a young age, I guess. Was that always a thing for you? Were you always teaching and always finding ways to help others in that way?
So 2 things pop in my mind. Number one, my mother said from the moment she brought me home from the hospital, if she would just prop me where I could see a room, I just watched everything that was happening, that I just soaked it all in. So from the time I came home from the hospital, I have been an observer of people. They were what interest me the most. And then the second thing that popped in my mind popped already back out. Oh, it was teaching. So from the time I was a child, I was told I should be a teacher because I had this ability to break things down to the simplest denominator. So I did gymnastics and I would translate for the coaches to the gymnast. But my parents were teachers, and I'm just like, I'm not working that hard for that amount of money. I'm just not doing it. But what I love about speaking is I get to teach without having to grade or do any of the parts of teaching that aren't so fun.
Yeah. Well, so you say your parents were teachers.
Yes.
So do you think that it was something that was just instilled in you from seeing them, or was it something that, I don't know, from your environment growing up where it just became very natural for you? What was the fuel behind that?
I think we have gifts that are just implanted in us, and I have the heart of a speaker and a teacher. And it's just this ability to look at something complex and make it really simple. And that works really well from a stage and when I write, because you really can take complex things and make them so that everybody can understand them. It really irritates me when I have to read a book 3 times or a paragraph 4 times, or I have to listen to something 4 times. I'm like, that just makes me mad, you know? So make it simple for people. So what I like to say is people may be complex, but they don't have to be confusing. And I think that's that teacher speaker heart in me. So I think that was just implanted in me when I was born and is a gift that I was given to give the world.
And of any way you could give that gift, you have obviously a specific area of focus and how you help teams and how you help them to avoid burnout, how you help them to work better together. Why, of all the things you could be teaching, did you decide on that being what you really want to focus on? Because you could have taken that skill and applied it in many different ways.
Well, I've suffered burnout firsthand. And so I have a personal affinity for what that was like. But I also used to be a professor and I trained counselors, and my students would come in and they would be so bright eyed and so hopeful. If they didn't learn how to take care of themselves, I watched them burn out quickly and leave the field bitter. And so one of the things that I think happens a lot with hardworking professionals is that if they don't take care of themselves, if they don't learn how to say no, if they don't learn how to manage and understand people, then they're probably going to be burned out. And instead of having their passion going out into the world, then bitterness and frustration go out, and they either leave differently or they treat people differently, and their light gets diminished and their impact gets diminished. And so I love helping people understand people and take care of themselves. And so I like applying that to leadership. Hey, when we understand people and we bring out the best in ourselves and others, everyone, organizations included, flourish. We take care of ourselves, we flourish, therefore other people flourish. And boy, when we take care of our mental health, then we lead from a position of strength and empower others to do the same. So to me, they're all intertwined and they're just fun to do. And I really like leaders because as the leader goes, so goes the team. And I've had wonderful leadership and really, really painful, dysfunctional, toxic leadership, which has formed a lot of my thoughts. And it's like leaders really exacerbate burnout and mental health conditions, or boy, they uplift people, and life in the world is an even better place because they're in it leading.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that you yourself experienced burnout. What was that experience for you?
I was trying to do a lot. I was teaching for the university full time. I was writing a book. I was trying to get my speaking career off the ground. So I'm running in 87 different directions. And I just didn't know how to say no to myself. I didn't know how to say no to other people. I didn't know how to pace myself. And I've always been passionate and enthusiastic, and I went kind of flat and empty, and it scared me. I've never felt that way before, where everything became difficult and I really didn't know how I felt or what was going on. And boy, I thought I don't want to do that again. And it negatively impacted all aspects of my life. And it's like, nope. So now I'm really careful. I know what it takes to stay in the productivity, I'm doing well zone, and I don't skate anywhere near the burnout line because that can be a really steep cliff, and climbing out of that ravine can be excruciating. It's a lot better just to skip it and stay safe.
It's hard to imagine a version of you like that, because in our conversation from the moment that you hopped on this call, in front of what I looked at, you're super full of energy, you get a big smile on your face, you're passionate, but you had an experience where it sounded like it was apathy. Was it apathy?
That would certainly be a word that would describe it, which again is the antithesis of who I am. And because I really, with all my heart, try and live what I preach. I do get to live in this spot of joy and of passion. It doesn't mean that I don't get tired or that I don't face life's challenges, because I do, just like everybody else. But I work really hard to build the resilience and to build the buffers and to make sure that I'm energizing myself. Because I feel, as a speaker, as a podcast guest, as the person that I want to be for the people in my life that are important to me, I want to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And how I take care of myself, how your listener takes care of themselves, really impacts whether or not we get to show up that way. And life is tough enough without making it hard on other people. And what we don't realize is we may not feel a difference, but the people around us feel it. Like,
Yeah.
I get, go ahead.
I was going to say, what you're saying, I want everyone who's listening to realize, while Sherene's saying this from the perspective of she is a speaker and she advises others, and that's how she leads, every person listening in some way, shape, or form is a leader. And
Absolutely.
therefore, right? Therefore, they should consider, okay, this does also apply to me, that I need to be sure I have the energy, I have the fuel to serve those around me. You don't need to be on a stage doing keynotes for that to apply, right?
No. And I believe that every single listener, what they do matters, and that every single one of us, whether we lead a team or we lead our team of one, who we are, we impact lives. And so I want to impact lives for the positive. And when I take care of myself and I stay far away from burnout, I have bandwidth. So I tolerate life's frustrations, and I can be calm when things are getting me upset. Like, I don't want to be the person who boom, explodes and then causes pain. I don't want to be the person who just goes quiet and takes my toys and go home. I want to make the world a better place. And I believe that anyone who is listening, they listen to you for a reason, Jay, because they long for more and they want to know more and to be the best versions of themselves. They wouldn't listen if they didn't want that. And so I love what you're doing in this world. And I'm so grateful for everyone who's tuning in, because you are a leader. And what you do matters to you, to the people that you serve, and to the people that you love. And I believe we get one ride on this beautiful planet. And at the end of mine, I want to say, I'm so glad I did, not I wish I would have. And so again, taking care of ourselves is the energy that makes us a better leader, that makes us a better partner, that makes us a better spouse, parent, functioning member of society. What we do matters.
Thank you for sharing that, Sherene. And what I think every listener always wants to consider is to, how do I apply this, right? What are the things what do I do in order to ensure that I keep that energy? I make sure that I'm fueled. I make sure that I can serve others. And what you do may not exactly work for them, but I always get curious when I'm meeting with someone such as yourself. What are some of the things that you find really work for you when you consider, okay, I do these kind of things regularly to ensure that I can have the energy, the focus, the clarity, and the well-being to be the best version of me? What are some of those activities, practices, tools?
So I minimize my self-inflicted stress. And that means I focus on the things I can control. So I talk about, my person wins the election, woohoo, my person loses, boohoo. But it's every 4 years. And aren't I grateful that I live in America and that I get to vote every 4 years, and every 8 years it's done? That's mindset. That's resilience. I can't control any election, but I can control how I think about it. Price of gas, it goes up, boo-hoo, goes down, woohoo. And it's like, I can't control the price of gas, but I can control how I drive. And I can control that if it goes up 30 cents a gallon, most I'm putting in probably is 10, it's $3. Do I want to put $3 in my car in the tank? No, but am I grateful I can afford it? So that's that mindset, focus on what I can control. And then I'm really careful who I let close to my life. And so I have 4 types of people I keep at bay: drainers, takers, gators, and players. It's like, I don't have time for drama. You get to determine your mental health, but I always get the next choice in what's happening. And Dr. Maya Angelou says, when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. People are going to tell us who they are, and I believe them, and I'm going to have appropriate boundaries. So one of the things that it really helps me is, it's like, they get the first choice when people are interacting with me, but I always get the next choice. And then they get a choice, and then I get a choice. And so it's about having healthy relationships and really keeping chaotic, dramatic, unhappy, unhealthy people away from siphoning off my energy. So I've got good boundaries when it comes to people. And then what I do is I really strategically work at that mindset, resilience, well-being. And so, the research says if we look at a picture of nature for a minute, or we're out in nature, we begin to get flooded with feel-good hormones. And I have the privilege. One of my dreams was to live at the lake. And so just outside behind where we are is the lake, and the water's ever moving, and it makes me happy. And being out on the water fills my soul. And then I really work at making sure I'm laughing and having fun, and things that make me laugh. Speed makes me laugh, not the drug, but like I love jet skis, and I love barreling down ski hills. The faster, the better. I just giggle. And so those are the things that remind me that life is worth living and energize me. And so I'm strategic about making sure I'm having fun. And then the last thing I'm really strategic about is making sure that I'm dreaming and moving toward even audacious dreams. And some of it are just fun dreams, like sprinkles on the life, cupcake of life. But some of it's like the impact I want to have, and the woman that I want to be, and the relationships I want to have, and the impact that I want to have. And so I think that being living where we are hopeful and have dreams and things that we anticipate gives us this energy and resilience that people who are stuck in today, or even far worse, stuck in yesterday, just are missing. So those are things I'm very strategic about and try to do on a daily basis.
There's so much to unpack there, because that was a lot of goodness. So I'm gonna go back to the first golden nugget you dropped on control and what you can control. Yes. And I want to share this analogy with you and get your take on it. And it's from Anthony DeMello, who's one of my favorite authors. He wrote the book Awareness. And in that book, he talks about how, imagine that you hand somebody else a remote control, okay? And they have the ability to control whether you feel really good, that woohoo, or you feel really bad, boohoo, right? So like a red button and a green button. And what I think you said that triggered the reminder of that is, it's as if this is a natural thing. We give that control over to other people, to situations, and they're pushing the buttons. And that means we're just riding these waves without any sense of control, and we're handing them that power. But that's a power that you're encouraging. Hey, each one of us, we can take that back with the right mindset and with reframing these situations.
And it doesn't mean that something somebody does isn't hurtful. It isn't wrong. It isn't, it's, people do things that actually impact other people. Like somebody robbing somebody is going to impact you. So I don't want to minimize that, but I do want to say, I talk about it in the same way you said, these riding the waves, and he's talking about the remote. I don't want to be on the end of somebody's yo-yo. So I'm giving my age away, because a yo-yo was a toy when I was a kid. I don't want to be on the end of somebody's string. My life is too important. And so I've done a ton of mental health work, my own personal mental health work, so that I can just go, yeah, I don't think that's about me. Or yes, that makes me angry. And now what do I want to do about it? And yes, they hurt me, and I don't want to stay tied to that. So I'm going to choose to forgive, not necessarily because I think they deserve it, but because I deserve to forgive and to move forward. And so much of it is our mental health work and our willingness to take care of ourselves in that arena that unties us and gets us off of the clicking and the surfing and that end of the yo-yo. So the more mentally healthy I get, the less I am impacted. And you know what I'm finding? The older I get, most of what happens has nothing to do with me. I like to think it's all about me, but it's not. They maybe had a bad day.
It has very little
to do. It's not personal.
It's not. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me at all. And what you're saying is reminding me also of this old story of it was, I think, the Buddha. It was a story where he suggested whenever we are holding on to resentment of another person, we are putting the poison pill in our own mouth and expecting someone else to be hurt by it. But we're the ones who are hurting ourselves when we are holding on to that resentment. We're angry with what they did. It should have been like this. It wasn't like that. And I'm frustrated by it. That person shouldn't have behaved that way. But they're not affected. It's you taking it personally, and therefore you affecting your own energy, your own happiness, which then creates a cause and effect relationship of spiraling into the dreaded word of burnout that so many people are looking to avoid these days.
And let me validate what you're saying. I made somebody mad once. I spoke the truth in my opinion, in love, as kindly as I could, but I set a boundary and I spoke truth, and I didn't let her hijack a group that I was leading. And she came up to me 3 years later and told me she had been avoiding me for 3 years. I never noticed. I hadn't given it another thought. And, I said to her, I'm sorry that I wounded you. That was not my intent. But
right.
What I didn't say, but I absolutely knew to the core of my being, and I would do it again in a heartbeat, because I picked the right thing, even if I angered you. But it was such an eye-opening experience. I went, she has been mad at me and resentful and avoiding me for 3 years, never noticed one time. That ought to tell us something.
Right. Well, what I can imagine, Sherene, is that many people have the complete opposite experience, where they feel as though I may have upset someone, and they're playing that in their head over and over and over again. And I'm raising my hand too, because I've been there. I've done it. I know what that's like, and that's tough. What I find is that you need to be really hyper aware of that tendency. You have to watch yourself, really notice that this thought is recurring. And then as it occurs over and over again, really just detach from it. Not in a way where you're being resentful and angry towards yourself either. That doesn't serve you. But to just look at it and be like, oh, there's that thought again. Actually, I had a conversation with one of my, so I have many one-on-one clients that I work with as well. And he told me a story that really warmed my heart. He's like, Jay, because we've been working together for weeks. He's like, Jay, the other day, this thought, whatever it was, he's like, it came up again. And I just looked at it and I was like, there you are again. And he said it with such playfulness. And I was like, yes, that's a sign of success.
That is a huge sign of success, because literally feelings are just feelings. And my feelings, I've said, are so fickle. They can change in 5 minutes. It's like, I don't want to live a life based on my feelings. They're fickle. I want to live a life based on the facts, based on where I want to go, based on how I treat other people. And it's like, oh my gosh, I love his response. I have a mantra, because I have always felt guilty for letting people down. And I have those hidden, I don't show it a whole lot, but perfectionistic tendencies where I can really beat myself up when I mess up and think that somebody's thought about something for 10 years when they probably have never thought about it again. So here's my mantra: mess up. We're all going to mess up. It just happens. Mess up, fess up. It's like, just tell the truth. I did this, and then make it right. I'm sorry. And then whatever, if there is restitution that can be done. But the last part has been as helpful as the first 3 for me, is move on. Mess up, fess up, make it right, move on. Because life is in front of us. And when we can't forgive ourselves, we are tied again to the past. And so I've literally worked hard to learn to forgive myself. And so I will literally, the person that I worked with, he said, you need to say out loud, I forgive myself for. And I might say that 8, 10, 15, 20 times until I get away of the emotion. But it's my discomfort with wanting to manage how people see me and my desire to be perfect. And it's like, no, people give me a lot of grace. I mess up, you mess up. What I do know is I don't hurt people intentionally. I have a good heart, and I surround myself with good people who, if there's a problem, they're going to tell me about it instead of shooting a message and bludgeoning me. And it's when we know that we approach things from a good heart, it's a lot easier to forgive ourselves and to forgive other people. I have a good heart. Your listeners have good hearts.
Well, I think that there's some reinforcement there too, when if anyone who feels like I'm no good, because people are sometimes in that space, right, Shereen? Like I'm no good. I'm a bad person, or they feel like there's a lot wrong with them. To reinforce that I am a good phrase I often use is I'm the type of person who, I'm the type of person who owns up to my mistakes. I'm the type of person who will be kind to a stranger. I'm the kind of person who will respond with compassion rather than resentment. And knowing what that is for you, like what type of person are you? Guess what? You get to decide. No one else is deciding that for you.
I've got to say, what you just said, I feel tears pricking at the back of my eyes. By the time I was 24, 25 years old, I was clinically depressed. I went into therapy. I was just a mess. And I just thought I was the worst pond scum, vilest human being. And I have a real tender heart. And so anybody who has a tender heart can be very manipulated by guilt and shame. And those are things that other people put on us to manipulate us into doing what they want us to do. And so I just took all of that in, and hearing you say that touches like the core of my being. I'm a good person. I'm the type of person who's kind to strangers. I'm the type of person who chooses to forgive. I'm the type of person who chooses to lift other people up. That's all stuff we can control. And that's all about resilience. And it's rewriting a script that many of us have grown up with and that have lived our entire lives. I love it. That touched me. And I bet it touched a lot of people listening, because we don't talk about that unless we really, really trust somebody. And usually that's in a coaching or a therapeutic relationship, or to a best friend, somebody who has proven over a long time that we are very, very safe in being honest. And so for you to even say that out loud, it's like, yeah. But we can control how we view ourselves, and we can rewrite a script that was written for us that is inaccurate and no longer serves us.
I appreciate you saying that, Shereen. And I think the choice of words there of it was a script that was written for us is a good way of putting it, because it's not as though you wrote that script for yourself. So in other words, like for anyone who has had that experience of being depressed, of dealing with a lot of anxiety or a lot of self-criticism, that was written by, could have been your parents, some family members, friends, where you were receiving these messages, sometimes not so overtly, but you were receiving those messages. And because of that, it then became a story that you were telling yourself. So one way to learn how to let go of it is to realize that it's not you doing it to you so much. So therefore, you shouldn't be at odds with yourself either.
Yeah. And I think when we have heard different things, what you're talking about is it gets adopted into our brain and our voice tone as though it's absolute truth. And until we get some help and start growing, we don't even challenge. We don't even see it. We just blindly accept it as truth. And, growth is such a remarkable thing. It's that Bill Murray Groundhog Day, where you step in the hole, you step in the hole, you step in the hole, you almost don't step in the hole, and then you go around the hole, and then ultimately you fix the hole. And it's like, oh my gosh, if each of us could just be patient with ourselves as we learn, and to not be hard on ourselves. Like I'll still go, I'll say to my best friend, I have no freaking boundaries. And then this is what she says to me. Oh, pal, they flew in under your radar. Like, oh my gosh, I love that, because I just always get to recalibrate my radar once I'm aware of something. So first time, I give myself a pass. But then I want to be wise enough to recalibrate the radar. And so what I'm hoping today is your listeners' radar is getting recalibrated, and that they're figuring out these really, you and I are talking about very simple things that they can do. I had somebody after a talk once say to me, because I don't talk about complex things. It's not rocket science. All it takes is courage and intentionality. I really talk about things that are simple. And she said, just because things are simple doesn't mean they're easy. And I thought, oh, that is brilliant. And so what you and I are talking about are very simple concepts. Doesn't mean that they're easy. And it takes character and it takes intentionality, but these are just little kaleidoscope bumps that literally, I believe, will transform listeners' lives as they listen to this today. Because it's so simple. You just go, why didn't I think of that? That's what I always think.
I couldn't agree more with what the audience member who came up to you said. Simple things are not always easy things. Just yesterday, I was on a phone call with a dear friend, and we were catching up a bit. And he was saying how each day he's struggling to be able to figure out the right rhythm because he's like, I have too many meetings. I get overworked. I get drained. And then we started talking about something different because he and I are doing some business together. But then later, I was starting to feel some of that myself. And I said, what can I do? Because I had a few minutes before my next meeting. So what I did was I went to my kitchen, I put on these exact headphones, and I just had some music going. Some real fun, uplifting music as I was getting a snack prepared. Then I called my fiance, Alex, and it wasn't about what I was going through, just to see how she was doing, just to connect, just to have a real conversation. And then I texted him. I said, hey, man, sometimes we forget it's literally what I texted him. The simplest things are the best things. And I just did this. I just put some music on. I talked to my fiance. And after 10 minutes, I feel totally energized, ready to get back to work.
I love that. And it's like, you had to be aware of how you were feeling. Yep. And then you had to be strategic and you knew what uplifted your soul. Music impacts us. And then I'm not the least bit surprised that talking to your fiance energized you and that you're back in the fight. That's really what life is about. It's like, we're all going to get stressed out. We're all going to get frustrated, but let's be aware of it. And then let's step back and let's take care of ourselves. I was thinking my mom sometimes knows me better than I know myself. And what I'm talking about is I get hangry. By nature, I'm pretty easygoing. When I get hungry, I'm not even aware of it, but I start to get intense and I'm not as patient with people. And so my mom is so priceless. She'll just say to me, sweetheart, do you need some protein? And I always go, oh man, I do. And I eat protein and 15 minutes later, I feel better. Like that is not hard. But what I've loved is I'm starting after all these years to not need my mom to say, sweetheart, do you need some protein? Like, oh, I'm starting to get intense. I'm a little hungry. I better eat some protein. So is that simple or what? But we have to get it on our radar to even know to do it.
Well, you're right. It always begins with that awareness of being aware of a tendency. And so, of course, that applies for ourselves. And what we also have in the story that we have in earlier from our episode is of Daniela, where she's aware of some of the challenges she sees within her team and she's struggling. And I know you work so often with teams, you work so often with leaders. And one of the things that comes up, and I hear this a lot, I'm sure you do, is that there's limited resources. We don't have as much resources as we'd like, right? And some of the simple things that we're talking about doesn't necessarily require a ton of resources, right? So, I mean, when you think about, okay, how do I get a whole team to really get bought into these kind of things? What are some of the things that you find really work? I mean, you've worked with teams all over the country, all over the world, even. What works, Sherene?
So I think when we understand ourselves, what it takes for us to be set up for success, that's probably half the battle. And so what I believe is that when individuals and organizations understand people, they position themselves to flourish. And then when they act on that information, then the world changes. And so I think Daniela, as a leader, your listeners, it's like, what do I need to do for me? And it's literally the old put on your own oxygen mask first, because we have to lead from a position of strength and take care of ourselves. Otherwise, we don't have it to give away. And we're not able to be gracious when we need to be gracious. And so let's figure out what it takes for us. And then let's be really strategic about the people around us. How do we set them up so that we are acting in a way that means that we understand them and we set them up for success. And sometimes that's as simple as like the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. Many people know that as the 5 love languages, Dr. Gary Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
Just how are they wired? And then I've come up with high flyers, steady gliders, lackers, slackers, and hackers. And boy, as a leader, I need to adjust. And some of the things that are happening in our workplaces are people problems and leadership problems. And that's why people are upset. And maybe we are spending too much time in meetings, or maybe we're working with conflict so much, but is there unaddressed conflict? Because anytime there are people problems, I believe it's a leadership problem. You've either got a leader who is not stepping up, or the leader is actually causing the problems. And so it's like there are people on teams that just destroy morale and destroy everything. And it's like, okay, the hard part of leadership, why you get paid the big bucks, is to let's tackle this and let's not let this happen on our watch. And so I kind of feel like when we get the people side of things better, everything else is lessened. And yes, it is an age of dwindling resources. And yes, people are asked to do more and more. And yes, organizations and bosses will take advantage, either on purpose, not always the case, or inadvertently, of people's generosity and work ethic. And so it's like, what do we need to do to set people up for success? So kind of a long, complex answer. I hope that made sense.
It did. What I think that you started with in regards to what I need to do to fix me or to work on me.
Always start there.
It starts there, right? And I'm just imagining, Daniela in the story, especially, oftentimes people in HR are very often the fixers, right? And they want to fix everyone else. And they get really upset that leaders are not, let's say, behaving in the way that they are hoping for, or teams are feeling burnt out. And they're like, I want to be the fixer. I want to fix everybody else. And what I'm hearing from you is, wait a minute, Daniela, start with you.
Yeah.
Know yourself, make sure you're in the best place. And then the next step after that is, and I'm just kind of summarizing some of what I heard. So is I know me, right, Daniela? I know me. And now my job is to help you know you. Is that right?
Yeah. And then as the leader is, how do we bring out the best in people and not let people destroy and hijack our teams and workplaces? Because that's one of the main reasons that people quit, is they fire their boss, and it's because their boss is yelling at them, or something is going on that is, they don't feel like they have power. And so, and sometimes they just don't. I believe with all my heart that systems are more powerful than individuals. There are healthy work environments, destination workplaces of excellence that people say, I want to work here. Here is a good place. They are productive. They are engaged. People laugh. People don't turn over there because it's a great place to work. And then there are workplaces that are really, really dysfunctional. Yeah. And part of it is like, let's tell ourselves the truth about what's going on around us. So like when I look at people problems and workplace problems, I look at problem solve. When you're a leader, you have the ability to solve the problem. When it's a people problem, you have a crucial conversation, you follow that up. HR people love that when leaders take care of it with them in the beginning. But what a lot of leaders do to HR people that'll burn anyone out is they come in and they can't take it anymore. You need to get rid of her, and you need to get rid of her right now. I cannot take this. But the HR person doesn't have any paperwork. They don't have anything documented. You've got to develop these skills to have critical conversations and talk with people when there's a problem. And then I'm thinking, even just as a leader, to know your people well enough to go, hey, you're not smiling anymore. What's going on? I'm worried about you. How can I help you? Or we watch them become anxious or their productivity decline. Hey, I'm concerned about you. What's going on? What can I do for you? So it's that other awareness and really pouring into people. So it's bringing out the best and then quashing the things that, again, tank morale, that destroy people, that cause high burnout and high anxiety. And workplace bullies, they really only need one victim, and it's almost always going to be the nice person who's ill-equipped to deal with it. And they pick their target strategically because they pick that person because they know they're going to be like a deer in the headlight. They're not going to say anything. And so they control an entire group by bullying one person because everybody's watching. It's like, no, they don't have to bully more than one person. They just have to do it with one. And so I feel like in most workplaces, it's like, oh my gosh, we've got to step up and do courageous, intentional leadership and start telling ourselves the truth and not make excuses for people. I was working with somebody and like they just were a good person, Jay. They just kind of, well, I don't know, maybe my directions weren't clear. Okay, I'll buy that one time. I'll buy that if 3 people tell you they're not clear. But when it's the same person happening multiple times, let's look at patterns. And, or, I told them to do this and they did that. So maybe they didn't understand. No, one time, yes. 2 times, no, that's called insubordination. Yeah, let's quit making excuses for people, because when we make excuses for behavior, when we tiptoe around it, when we create a story to explain it because we would never do that. So we're creating these stories. It's like we allow this behavior to flourish. And then that puts so much stress on other people. And, if you look at the Gallup poll on engagement, 30%, basically, I think it's 31% in the last one, of American workers report being engaged and committed to their work and workplace. 50% report being passively engaged, pretty much coasting. And then an incredible 17%, so my first number was wrong, it's 33, 17% of the US population, 85,000 American workers, self-report that they are actively disengaged and trying to cause problems. And so we've really got to start going, if we began to empower our leaders to take care of problem people, instead of making excuses for them, instead of going silent, the entire group flourishes and everything lifts and all the stress goes down and burnout goes out the window. So I think it's boundaries. I think it's crucial leadership. I think it's making sure we're fueling ourselves. But it's like it all gets intertwined. But healthy workplaces have healthy leaders who say, not on my watch. We're not doing that. We don't gossip here. We don't bully people. We disagree civilly.
What I think is important to really highlight in what you shared is that all of this can be a learned skill. Like I think that anyone who commits to being a more self-aware and emotionally intelligent leader can. I think some people, I think this is the truth though. Some people have more of a natural tendency to be able to captivate quickly. Like that's true. And then some people, it takes a little bit more work. I feel like an organization has to make a decision ultimately if, hey, this person, it's worth that investment and we're going to do everything we can to really get them in that place of they're being self-aware and emotionally intelligent and they really give them the tools and every chance to succeed. Or you, as you said, hey, we've given you a lot of opportunity here and you keep falling short, then there may be may not be the right fit. But what I'm also thinking is important from what you pulled is, okay, I learned this skill. I now have to activate it. I have to apply it, which means you need to get uncomfortable to have those difficult conversations that everyone tends to avoid. Like no one wants to have that performance conversation with someone to say you're not doing your job. I have my company. I have many people on my team. I don't like those conversations, but I know I have to have them. I know it is a requirement of me to have them because otherwise I'm not serving them well. If I keep telling them, oh, you're doing great. Oh, you're doing fine. Oh, it's, don't worry about it this time. And what excuses am I making? No, there is a job to do. Here's what I expect. You're not meeting those expectations. I can say that with a smile, with respect, with kindness, but it needs to be said.
Yes. And so literally my brain goes a couple of things. It's like problem solve when you have power, problem manage when you don't have power. Tell ourselves the truth. So many people are promoted into leadership because they're good at their job, but they and they say yes because they want to be a team player and they've been asked or maybe even begged. And it's like, but not everybody is wired to lead teams, and it ruins the job for them. And so it's like, oh my gosh, being a good leader takes so much intentionality. And I do believe that these are learned skills. I love that you're like, yeah, I owe it to the person that I'm leading to speak the truth. And what I would say is, given those Gallup poll stats, not only do you owe it to that person and to yourself as a business owner, but you owe it to the rest of your staff. Because if they're coasting, somebody else is picking up their slack. And if they're causing problems, other people are picking up their slack, and they're having pain inflicted upon them. And that's all about silencing people. And they do it through shame and blame and guilting people. And so if I can take away your voice, I get to run the show. And it's like, no, we just can't do that. We need healthy, strong leaders.
Yeah.
But it takes so much courage to be a good leader. And I'll be honest, there are times when I'm going, yeah, everything's fine. And then I go, oh my gosh, I got to practice what I preach.
Yeah. Well, it takes courage. Yeah. Well, like we said before, right? This is something that could be described as simple, but not easy. It is not easy to be a courageous leader. It is not. And I can tell you, because I've worked with a lot of leaders, I know you have too, even the ones who are courageous, when we look at them from the outside, they still struggle at times. They still find it hard. They still can fall into that reaction of just getting so fed up with it and wanting to just tell someone off, right? They have to keep working at it, right, Sherene? Like, you can't just, it's not like, oh, I get it and I'm good. No, you have to continuously work on being a courageous leader.
Yeah. So here's what I think in life, be it a leader or just who you are as a person, we're either moving toward or away from. So we make courageous decisions. We become a better leader. We make more cowardly decisions that involve our comfort, and we kick it down the can. We become a less effective leader. Mental health, we're moving toward it or away from it. Relationships, we're moving toward them and they're getting better, or we're moving away. And it's all based on whether we decide to address what's happening or not. And I would say, I remember my brother and I were talking once. I'm like, oh, I've got to have a conversation with them. And he looked at me, he's like, but you love conflict. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't like conflict. I like the byproduct of resolved conflict, because trust is increased and the relationship is enhanced, and there are different outcomes. I will always go to bat for the outcome and the byproduct of it. But it takes every ounce of courage within me to have a conversation. And sometimes it's like really pulling into that energy well, because it's easier. It's kind of like parenting. When you have a 2-year-old who's having a meltdown, it's easier to give them what they want. But here's what I would say to a parent. If a kid gets their way 9 out of 10 times when they have a tantrum, what's the kid going to do? Have a tantrum. The odds are good. But if the kid gets their way 1 time out of 10, they're going to have some tantrums, because this might be the time. And so it's like, no, we just have to say it what it is, be consistent. And even when we're tired, not send mixed messages, because if we let things slide, it's confusing for people, and we're reinforcing that, bad behavior is fine. It's tolerated. Yeah. And my favorite mentor, her name's Dr. Brenda Freeman. She was my chair of my doc program. I mean, she's just an amazing woman. But one thing that she taught me I've never forgotten is bad behavior left unchecked grows. Bad behavior left unchecked grows. And most of us ignore it in the hopes that it'll magically go away. But it doesn't go away. It just goes underground, and then it comes back and bites us bigger the next time.
And this is a practice that anyone could apply in the moment of decision, because I'm sure anyone listening can relate to this exact experience. That is, something happens and it's a moment of decision of, do I address it directly or do I sweep it under the rug? And this is how I work through it. I feel it, and always my first inclination is sweep it under the rug. Always. And then I sometimes have to sit on it for a little bit.
Yep.
I'm not talking days. I'm talking even just minutes. Like, just wait a minute. Let me go through what are the consequences of if I sweep this under the rug. It will mean that the person will have this behavior again. It means it's never going to be addressed, and it's going to create some more negative outcomes. If I address it directly, I could avoid all of that happening. So I just have to get out of my comfort zone right now to have that direct conversation. So there's some objective analysis that can go into this, which is like, okay, if I don't do it, then what? And if I do it, then what? And therefore, am I willing to step into the discomfort?
What great self-coaching there. And here's the bottom line is when we sidestep it, like if it happens once, maybe you don't need to address it. But boy, if it happens twice, it's a pattern. You better be ready to address it the second time. Because the first time you might go, not sure about that. I want to mull that over. But if it ever happens again, but here's what I would say is, boy, if you know if it happens again, it's going to bother you, then you already know the answer. And you need to take care of it when you can do it in this voice tone instead of being really angry at somebody.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I like
that's where you have to
see it, say it. You know?
Yeah, and then I appreciate you said that at the end, which is like also make sure that you're not in that triggered state when you're then addressing it, right? And that's why sometimes I need a few minutes. Like, let me not be reactive, and let me be sure I'm responding with a lot more clarity. But I want to be sure we get back into Daniela here just for a moment. And one of the things that I always do towards the end of our conversations is ask our guests to put themselves in a situation where they meet the person in the story. So in this case, it's Daniela. And let's say you did a keynote for an association and she was attending and she felt inspired by your message. So you come off stage, she comes right up to you, she tells you her story. You're listening, you're acknowledging what she's going through, you're empathizing with her situation, and you have an opportunity to ask her a question or two just to get her to start thinking differently. Maybe have her start to focus on things from give a different perspective to it. What would you ask her, Sherene? What would you ask her in that moment?
The first thing that I would do is I would tell her how much I appreciate her heart and her longing to do good and how much she gives, because she's a warrior and she cares deeply about people and about her organization. But then I think what I would ask her is, what are you cultivating that would be in your own life and at work? And then what are you tolerating?
Tell me about tolerating. Tell me more.
Tolerating is what you and I were just talking about. It's the bad behavior, either in ourselves or in other people. The rolling of an eyes in a meeting, or the sarcastic jab, or what are you tolerating? And so maybe she's tolerating an organization that needs to hire more people and they haven't. Like if you're a business owner and you were to lose your best employee and you would have to hire 3 people to replace them, tell yourself the truth. You're engaging in employee abuse. They are willing to work for you more than they should. And we take advantage inadvertently or inadvertently because either we're naive or we're willing to. But it's like, no, let's tell ourselves the truth. So is this an organization that when we say, hey, we're overwhelmed, are you tolerating, she sounds like she could be putting in 60, 80, 90 hours a week. Are you tolerating no time for yourself? No, you're taking it out on your husband. What's happening in your other relationships. So tolerating is whatever we're allowing to happen, because she is an unwitting participant if she is doing 2 or 3 people's jobs. And so that's tolerating. And it may be that there are some people who don't treat people very nicely. Or how are you tolerating being treated? Like my brother-in-law, he's a rock star. He's just amazing. And he was working like 14, 16-hour days just to get his job done. And he went into his boss and he said, what I'm doing is not sustainable. I really need to get some help and some clarity. And this leader literally said to him, well, Bob, You just need to come in earlier and leave later so you can get everything done.
Wow.
Yeah. And so here's what happened that day is this hardworking rock star. He still kept that job because he had 2 kids in college. He's just a good man and a hard worker, and he's going to do what a man's got to do, and he's going to provide for his family. So he sucked it up. But you know what the other thing he did that day? He took his heart out of the equation, and they just killed his love and everything that he was so willing to do above and beyond, because that's bad behavior on that leader's part. So what are we tolerating? Ourselves and our workplaces? What's tolerated that really shouldn't be? And then, boy, what are we cultivating? Are we cultivating good health? Are we cultivating good relationships? Are we cultivating success? Are we cultivating good leadership? It's what are we cultivating and what are we tolerating? And to me, it's an either or. It's that thing we were talking about earlier. You don't get to stand still for long. You're either cultivating what's good or you're tolerating what's bad. It's take your pick.
Yeah, and it starts with you. I think that's one of the messages that I'm taking away from this conversation to always remind myself of, and I hope everyone listening also takes that home with them, which is it always starts with you, rather than looking to blame the world and be the victim of circumstance. What am I cultivating and what am I tolerating? And Sherene, this was such a great conversation. I am so glad that we made this happen. And for anyone listening, Sherene is a fantastic speaker. You do keynotes, you do workshops with teams, and anyone who wants to find out more about your work, it's ShereneMcHenry.com. So I'll spell that out. ShereneMcHenry.com. We have that in the show notes. You spell Sherene different than how my sister spells it. She spells it Shereen. And as I said it before we started recording too, I really mean this. If you're ever here in New Jersey, you said you're going to be here later in the year, let's get together in person for a coffee or for lunch or something. I would love to connect in person at some time too.
I would love that too, Jay. Keep up this incredible work you're doing. You are so well suited for this. And what a fascinating conversation. I just love your heart for the people that you serve. And it's been a real privilege to get to chat with you and play with you.
It's not often that I meet somebody with the name Sherene. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, that's my sister's name. And it was interesting how much she and I had in common. I felt like we could have talked for hours. And I'm going to do my best, as I always do, to break it down into our insights and our actionable takeaways. The first of 3 insights. What you do matters. We're all having an impact on others. And it's important to take inventory of that. And she said it in the conversation. I wanted to highlight it. She said, I want to look back and say, I'm so glad I did. Meaning to not live with regrets and to be able to acknowledge the kind of impact that you have on others. So always remember what you do matters. Second insight, don't be on the end of someone else's yo-yo. I liked that visual, being on the end of someone's yo-yo. By being on someone's yo-yo, you've made that choice. That's not their fault. You can't put the blame on them. You have to own up to that. You're allowing them. So cut that string. Don't let someone else determine your happiness or your misery. Third insight, recalibrate your radar. I really like that way of putting it. You get feedback, you make a mistake. Rather than being so hard on yourself, be patient with yourself and realize, hey, I just need to recalibrate here a bit. And as she talked about in the conversation, it really does start with you. You have to observe yourself and improve yourself in order to make the impact that you want to make. So being able to recalibrate is a valuable skill. Actionable takeaways. Number 1, minimize self-inflicted stress. So she talked about staying focused on what she can control, but also keeping certain people at bay. And in addition to that, cultivating that sense of positive energy and connection through being out in nature, by having fun. She mentioned being on jet skis, right? And chasing audacious dreams. Minimize those self-inflicted stress points and then cultivate those energy-producing activities. Second actionable takeaway: mess up, fess up, make it right, move on. I really like the way she put it. It's okay to make a mistake, but just fess up to it, own it, and then do what you can to make it right, but then let go, move on. You learn from it, you grow from it, and then you move on. And then the third actionable takeaway is the question she brought up at the end. What are you cultivating and what are you tolerating? What you're tolerating at times, especially in leadership positions, could be poor performance. And bad behavior left unchecked will only grow. You're only going to get more of it. So you need to have the courage to call out that which you no longer are willing to tolerate. And what we'll do on Friday is I'm going to dive into how to have those conversations. You hear it all the time. How do you give feedback? How do you have performance conversations? How do you go through performance reviews? And I'm going to give you what I know works. From my own experience and having coached leaders all over the world, how to approach people where you can clearly communicate if they're underperforming, while, of course, showing them a great deal of respect. You want the person on the other side to be able to walk away from that conversation feeling as though you really care about them and you didn't bullshit them. You were honest. You were real about where they stand, and the person walks away feeling as though you led with integrity. So we're going to discuss that on Friday's episode, so don't miss that. So until next time, thank you so much for listening.